Everyone is asking if gold, silver, oil will go up or crash, if the dollar will crash and lose its dominance, what the financial system will look like in the future, if the BRICS countries will take over as the dominant global force. I've got a theory that I think will play out, but first, I need you to shift your perspective on how the current financial system looks from a fragmented system trading assets and commodities to a system that will operate completely differently. A system that will use one decentralized foundation to transact value smoothly and efficiency to any other asset, saving anyone involved time and money. To understand all of this is possible, you must understand that all of these world events, like oil wars, gold and silver spiking, are not only inevitable but also planned. These events are orchestrated because this all has to play out in a specific way to create the starting foundation for how all of this is going to work. And if you think in this way, you will be ahead of the game and be able to watch all of this play out. This theory that I have is about commodities like gold and silver being repriced to their true value and no longer being manipulated, why countries and banks have been stacking physical commodities and de risking from their paper holdings of these commodities, why XRP will be used as the underlying bridge asset to settle these commodities as new settlement assets for global trade, and lastly, how XRP can pitch their case to these BRICS countries. Commodities like gold and silver were suppressed for too long so people wouldn't lose trust in the US dollar. This was important because the US dollar needed to remain strong because it was the primary currency used in oil trade, and also gold was priced in US dollars. So, if the US could keep the dollar strong and the price of gold, silver, and oil in dollars suppressed, then they could delay the perception of inflation. Because gold and silver are known to be hedges against inflation, so if they keep these assets priced in dollars suppressed, then panic would not rise. But we are shifting away from a system of money being able to be printed out of thin air. The debt based system is going away. Money will no longer be printed, and everything will be based on its true value, tokenized using the underlying asset of XRP. Nothing will be based on the US dollar anymore. Gold, silver, oil, nothing will be based on the US dollar. The petrodollar is going away. All of this is going away. This is de-dollarization, and the United States is actually okay with this because they know their fiat dollar is failing and they have liquidity issues themselves. They are using the distraction of de-dollarization, oil wars, etc. to keep us from seeing how this will actually play out. A liquidity crisis would be evident in the event of a reverse carry trade with Japan, where there would no longer be demand for the US dollar and the Japanese yen liquidity would no longer flow into the US dollar. They need the most liquid asset on the planet, XRP, to solve this because investors won't want to wait days for settlement between currencies. Everything will be priced on the price of gold, silver, and oil, or this basket of assets, or what we call commodities, like how it used to be during the gold standard, where all trade was based on real assets. They will be tokenized on the XRP ledger, and the price of XRP will reflect this. XRP is not competing with gold, silver, oil, CBDCs because they will all use XRP so they can transact smoothly and already have the most liquid asset on earth on their balance sheet. And since oil, gold, silver will no longer be priced in US dollars and instead valued on XRP, you will no longer have these prices suppressed to maintain faith in the US dollar dominance or faith in the fiat system. Once again, the United States and all of these countries are okay with this because they know the fiat system is broken. They save money, settle their positions faster, and reduce risk by implementing XRP. The petrodollar, it's going away. Dollar dominance, it's going away. China, Russia, whoever's fiat currency will not take the reins. Everything will be based on this basket of real world assets, which will be priced at their true value because the United States no longer needs to preserve its global dominance. This would tether global trade to real assets, not government debt. XRP is needed, and CBDCs will use XRP. XRP is not competing with CBDCs. The argument that CBDCs don't need XRP doesn't make sense because in this scenario, it's still the same version of this broken debt based system, but in digital form. One of the main issues are the Nostro Vostro accounts that take trillions of dollars of liquidity. Not only do they have to pre fund these accounts with trillions of dollars, but sometimes it takes days for it to settle. And also, sometimes it can have other factors like another country needing to settle before this transaction can settle. This is not only slow, but in the event of a currency crisis, a central bank wants to settle their debts fast and get out of their positions. You can't do this if there's no liquid supply, or in the event of a commodity crisis like oil. This is why central banks have been positioning themselves by buying these real assets as reserves. Every country will have the opportunity to build their own system or ecosystem on top of the XRP ledger, but they will have to use XRP as the underlying asset. This is also not about China hoarding silver and no longer participating in global trade. You need to reframe your perspective on this. All of these countries are positioning themselves as hubs of foreign trade for this new market. China isn't cutting everyone off from their silver. These countries will utilize these commodities as foreign trade assets using XRP. This is planned. These commodities will no longer be priced based on scarcity. They will reflect their new monetary role. This is one of the reasons why gold, silver, and oil will be repriced. And these moves are not something you will be able to chart because this is a shift in a new monetary paradigm. Look at why silver is booming, for example. Silver is one of the most conductive metals on Earth used for green energy and electronics. This is the true value, not just scarcity. These countries and banks know that fiat is failing, which is why they have been buying these real assets, which will no longer be valued in dollars or fiat, and will be valued and backed by things like gold and silver using XRP. JP Morgan, for example, is no longer short and needs gold or silver markets suppressed to uphold the dollar dominance because they are long on physical gold and physical silver, which they will use as a basket for international trade. They know that paper money is failing. Think of this as de risking from paper money and debt and investing in physical that will actually be tokenized and backed digitally. This is the digital gold standard, if you will. Everything will use XRP as a bridge asset and on demand liquidity. Why is this important? Well, imagine the current market. A 3-day settlement period for gold to oil trade could see a 10% move in gold's price, which would bankrupt one party. XRP's 3-second settlement eliminates this settlement risk. The issue is not about moving physical commodities as fast as possible. It's about settling the value as fast as possible between countries. It's all about liquidity. It's all about settling their money positions, which they can then ship as a commodity to the buyer after the fact. These are real world assets that will be tokenized for faster settlement. The problem that needs to be fixed is how these countries can settle assets or transactions in real time with liquidity. We've all heard this before, but what does it mean? Currently, the global financial system operates in a fragmented manner, which inherently is slow, risky, and costly. You buy oil, gold, whatever currency, you have to wait. All of these settlements between two parties are dependent on another party settling their transaction first, which causes this transaction to wait. It's all fragmented. We need one system that operates on one asset that would allow everything to settle more fluidly without the dependency of something else needing to settle before your trade can settle. This is what a very liquid economy looks like. Countries and banks will no longer need to pre-fund Nostro Voso accounts with liquidity just sitting in them. This is trapped liquidity. Instead, they will need to actually hold the XRP on their balance sheets, which allows the liquidity to flow smoothly. This acts as a Nostro Voso account, allowing them the liquidity they need to transact gold, silver, oil, currency, or whatever asset that they hold and need to transact for. These commodities will no longer be commodities. They will become the new primary settlement assets for international trade. This is like a basket of goods that all of these central banks hold to settle international trade. BRICS countries will also need this too, and there's a couple of ways for the case that XRP can be pitched, which I think will ultimately be a hybrid of these scenarios. Number one, Ripple doesn't pitch replace the dollar, but rather cut your costs by 60% and settle in seconds for cross-border transactions in any currency pair. The value for this is purely for economic efficiency. As BRICS banks integrate, XRP becomes a neutral bridge asset in their regional trade corridors. Government tolerance will grow because this would deliver tangible benefits while removing politics from the equation. Number two, XRP could act as a neutral bridge asset between various CBDCs, solving the liquidity fragmentation problem that would otherwise cripple a multi currency BRICS system. Like I mentioned before, without XRP, CBDCs are just a digital version of the broken financial system that locks true, smooth, on demand liquidity. The XRPL is an open source technology and can be deployed privately. A BRICS system could run a shared permissionless ledger based on the XRPL with their own governance. This removes the risk of a BRICS currency using a US based asset while still taking advantage of a useful technology. So, the hybrid that I think will happen is the BRICS countries to start would create a parallel system on top of the XRP ledger with their own native token, like a BRICS trade token, backed by a basket of gold, silver, and other assets. The public XRP ledger and token would continue to operate globally, serving as a bridge between BRICS countries and other countries for entities that still want to trade and operate in both worlds. And one thing I want to point out is that the XRP token itself is decentralized. Ripple does not own it. Ripple sells their consulting to help companies and banks implement the service and build it out. They cannot profit from the XRP token itself. And different countries will be able to build their own infrastructure on top of XRP. It's just like a highway where they can build their own rules, CBDCs, or whatever on top of it. So, to sum this up, to get the BRICS countries to use XRP, it would need to be framed not as a US product, but a global utility. To China, XRP is a more efficient tool to internationalize the digital yuan than building bilateral corridors with 100 different countries. It is the SWIFT for the digital age, and China can control their own node. To India, the UAE, and Brazil, this is not about ideology. It is about saving your corporations billions in trade friction, making your exports more competitive. To everyone else, the technology is agnostic. You can use it to settle your own local currency in gold backed tokens or in a BRICS unit. XRP simply makes whatever you build on top of it faster and cheaper. The verdict is that BRICS adopting XRP's token itself in its current form is a long shot due to geopolitical distrust, but the adoption of the overlying XRPL technology in a sovereign, controlled form is highly likely. The most likely future is one of multiple ledgers where XRPL becomes the standard for value settlement, and the public XRP token thrives as the infrastructure that makes this all possible. If this information was valuable, please consider dropping a like. I spent a lot of time dissecting all of this information so it can make sense to everyone. And let me know what you think. I would love to hear your thoughts and opinions in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe for more future XRP content.